back to the channel, Ginger Ninja's Movie Reviews. I am the Ginger Ninja and these are my movie reviews. If you're new to my channel, thank you very much for tuning in, stopping by and checking it out. And if you're wondering what we're doing, well, it's August and I like to do a bit of a theme and we're doing Awesome 80s August, and this week we are looking at one which is maybe not so awesome. It's none other than Return of the Living Dead Part 2. This here is my DVD. Here it does have some special features on it, nothing to write home about, but let's get into this one. So, directed by Dan Whitehorn, the film stars Jameskaren, Thommathews, Michael Kenworthy, Thor Van Lingen, Susan Snyder, Marsha Dietland, Dana Ashbrook, and Alan Troutman. And if you're wondering who Alan Troutman is, he's none other than Tarman. Classic from the original, brought back in this one as a newer version of Tarman. But first things first, I do want to thank all my new subscribers and of course my existing subscribers. It really means the world to me that you guys are sticking with me as we go through these movies that I really do enjoy, and well, let's see what I think about this one, hey? Now, we'll be discussing plot specifics. There will be spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen it, you know what to do. So curious kids unearth barrels that previously helped revive the dead, which provides second times a charm? I don't know, like really. Basically some barrels fall off, kids find them, dead come out. This plot, or really lack thereof, is one of the most glaring issues with Return of the Living Dead Part 2. It's just not original. It's essentially just a recycled version of the first movie. A bunch of brain-hungry zombies are unleashed on a hapless town and a group of clueless teenagers must somehow survive. I mean, can't they even come up with something even remotely original? It's basically a copy-paste script, and they change a few names and location. Now, that being said, like Return of the Living Dead 3, much better, much better. They took the existing premise and went somewhere different with it, and I love that film. However, it's not an 80s film, and we're not talking about that. We're talking about this one, Return of the Living Dead Part 2. So let's go into the cast. So, character development is another area where this sequel falters. Now, the original film offered a diverse cast of characters with distinct personalities and motivations. The sequel's characters come across as bland and really one-dimensional. The attempts to replicate the chemistry between the lead characters from the first film really do fall short, as the interactions between the new characters lack the same level of authenticity and relatability. Now, as a result, it becomes challenging to really invest in their struggles and root for their survival, diminishing the emotional stakes of the film. And that's not to mention the annoying kid who's supposed to provide comic relief, but ends up being more irritating than funny. No one likes that kid. No one. Look, it is honestly like they took a checklist of teen movie cliches and kind of ticked them off one by one, and not even teen movie cliches, just cliches overall. Now, directing and writing. Look, this film did have a lot going on behind the scenes. The director was not a fan. Like, he did not want to be doing this, and that's been discussed on many interviews. Thommathews was quite vocal about his displeasure about working with the movie because of, from what I've read, the director, and he even said that the catering was the best thing about the filming of this movie. So, anyway, I digress. The humour of this sequel is it really suffers, man. Like, you look at the original, that movie had everything going for it. Had this, it had a perfect balance of horror and comedy. Like, it wasn't flat out funny, it wasn't juvenile comedy, it wasn't slapstick comedy, it was just this dark humour that was in it. And that really balanced it out well with the gruesome horror of the first film. Return of the Living Dead Part 2 leans really heavily towards slapstick and juvenile humour, and those attempts at humour fall flat. I get it's supposed to be a horror comedy, but if you can't deliver on either front, what's the point? The effects and makeup of this film are, well, again, they're a highlight of the original film. You know, you look at some of those scenes, like Tarman is a classic example of it. Now, Tarman does look good in this one, I'll granted, but nowhere near the original. You know, the original just had so much going for it. I do keep harping on about the original because it is such a good film that this sequel just does not live up to it. And that, you know, I know that sequels, you know, I'll get on that in a minute. But look, the zombie designs, they're creative, but they lack the same attention to detail and creativity that made the first film's zombies memorable. The practical effects once contributed to visceral horror in the original film are overshadowed by comedic elements, resulting in less of an impactful visual experience. Not to say that the gore effects aren't great. Well, they're not great, they're not all bad. Some of them are really good. It's just the zombies themselves don't look that great. They kind of look just like some paint's been put on someone. There's no gruesomeness. Like, you've got the classic ones from the original, like, you know, the zombie lady on the table, you know. You do get a bit of that. They kind of emulate that with the head in the bag in this one, but it just isn't the same. It doesn't have that same impact, doesn't have that same feel. Now, rewatchability is something I really like to put a hold on for these films, because if I'm going to watch a film, I want to be able to rewatch it. You know? And this is what I mean with this one. Now, it's not uncommon for sequels to struggle in comparison to the predecessors, especially when you have a film like Return of the Living Dead. It is very hard to live up to something that is that good. But this film's shortcomings are glaringly obvious and particularly disappointing given the potential of what it had coming from its source material. Fans of the first film might find some nostalgic value seeing familiar elements, but overall, Return of the Living Dead Part 2 just fails to recapture the magic that made the first film so memorable. It is a copy-paste. They even say it. It feels like there's a quote in this movie where it says, "We feel like we've done this before. We've seen this before." No shit, Sherlock. You fucking did in the first movie. Anyway, overall, look, I'm all for cheesy B movies and sequels that embrace their campiness, but look, this film just feels lazy. It's a half-hearted attempt to cash in on the success of the first film without bothering to actually capture any of its spirit or creativity. Look, if you're a die-hard fan of the original, which I am, maybe give it a watch for the sake of completion. And that's the reason why I have this. I've got this, I've got the original, I've got the third one. I do not have 4 and 5 yet. I am maybe going to get them. We'll see. Anyway, look, overall, you know, you're better off rewatching the first one and forgetting this one if you haven't seen it. But if you have, well, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below. Overall, for a score, I'll give Return of the Living Dead Part 2 a 5.5 out of 10. Gets a few extra points because I do enjoy some of the special effects. They're not terrible. The makeup effects, not great, but the actual special effects in the film actually do look okay. There is one scene with electricity which was completely done by hand, and you got to give them credit for that. You know, that was fantastic. Apparently that cost $50,000 just for that. I think that's where they spent the entire budget. That, and according to thommathews, the catering. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, please do give this video a thumbs up. It'd be much appreciated. And of course, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell so that way you're notified each time I do release a new video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.